I raised my stepdaughter, but when she got pregnant, she told everyone I wasn't her real mom and said her baby would have a real mother, so I cut her off without a second thought. So, I met David when I was 32, he was 35, and his daughter Emma was just 9. Emma's mom had left when she was 4 because she was dealing with some serious addiction and mental health challenges. David had full custody, and Emma barely saw her mom, maybe once or twice a year during supervised visits, and even then, her mom often didn't show up. When David and I started dating, I was really careful not to jump into Emma's world too fast. I knew how tricky it could be for kids to get used to a new person in their dad's life. I hadn't been married before and didn't have any kids, but I'd always wanted to be a mom. From the get-go, I felt a strong connection with both David and Emma. Emma was a bit quiet and shy at first, but I could see she was super smart and curious and really needed some stability and attention. David and I took it slow for about 6 months before I started spending more time at their place. I'd help with Emma's homework, pack her lunches, and drive her to soccer practice. Over time, Emma started warming up to me and accepted me as part of her life. David and I got married when Emma was 11. By then, she had started calling me Mom, unprompted, which made me feel like I'd found my calling. I loved her as if she were my own, wanting to give her all the love and stability she'd missed out on. I was there for every parent-teacher conference, helped with her science fair projects, and taught her the basics of adulting like cooking and laundry. David was often busy with work and travel, so I handled most of the day-to-day parenting. Even though it was sometimes tiring, I loved every minute of it. Emma and I grew really close. She'd tell me everything from friend drama to, oh boy trouble, to her worries about the future. I was there when she had her first heartbreak at 15, supported her decision to quit piano to focus on soccer, and spent countless hours helping with college apps. When she got into the state university with a scholarship, I was over the moon proud. I cried happy tears. Emma studied business but dealt with some anxiety and self-doubt, likely from her childhood experiences. I made sure she had counseling at college and kept in touch to ensure she wasn't overwhelmed. We visited her a few times each semester, and she came home for breaks, keeping our bond strong. After graduation, Emma moved back home to job hunt and met Sean at a party. He was a bit older and seemed nice enough, though a bit immature. They got serious quickly, talking about moving in after just 6 months, which made me a little nervous. But Emma landed a job and moved in with Sean after about 8 months. I had some concerns about how much influence Sean had over Emma, as she seemed to be changing for him, but David and I tried to stay supportive. Then, when Emma was 24, she called to say she was pregnant. I was surprised, but excited to become a grandma. Emma seemed nervous but said Sean was thrilled, and they planned to marry before the baby arrived. I was all about helping her out, ready with savings to set up the nursery and buy baby essentials. A couple of weeks later, they came over for our traditional Sunday dinner. Emma seemed a bit off, more distant, and after dinner, she pulled me aside to chat in the kitchen. I thought she'd want to talk about baby stuff or need some advice. But she gave me this serious look and started talking about how she and Sean had decided to make sure their child knew the truth about their family and wasn't confused about who their real relatives were. I was taken aback and didn't quite understand where she was going with this. So, at first I didn't really get what Emma was trying to say, so I just straight up asked her to clear things up. Emma took a deep breath and let it all out. She basically told me how much she appreciated everything I'd done for her over the years. But then she hit me with the news that even though she loved me, I wasn't her real mom, and she wanted her kid to understand the difference between a biological family and a chosen family. Emma insisted her baby would have a real mom from the start, unlike her, and she didn't want any gray areas about my role once the baby was here. I was taken aback and could barely breathe for a moment. I had to ask Emma what she meant about her kid having a real mom, unlike her. She explained she'd been reflecting on her childhood and how confusing it was for her, with me acting like her mom when technically I wasn't. She decided she didn't want her child going through the same confusion. Both she and Sean agreed they needed to set clear family boundaries, making sure their child knew who the biological parents were. Trying to keep my cool, I asked Emma if she expected me to believe that all those years I'd been there for her didn't count because I wasn't her biological mom. Emma quickly reassured me that my efforts mattered and she was super grateful, but being grateful didn't change the fact that I wasn't her real mom. and she didn't want her kid getting mixed up about it. She emphasized that she and Sean had talked a lot about making things clear from the start. It was tough hole. Ding back my tears. I asked her if this meant she no longer saw me as her mom. Emma said I'd been like a mom to her, but not actually her mom, and now that she was going to be a real mom herself, she recognized that difference. She hoped I'd still play a role in her child's life as David's wife and her stepmom, but she wanted everyone to know their place in relationships. We talked for another 20 minutes, with Emma explaining her views and me trying to wrap my head around how my daughter, who I raised and loved for 15 years, suddenly dismissed our relationship because we weren't biologically tied. Emma kept saying she wasn't trying to hurt me and that she was thankful for all I'd done, yet she also kept insisting that I wasn't her real mom, and her child would be fortunate to have one from the get-go. Later, when we joined David and Sean in the living room, I was barely keeping it together. David noticed immediately, but I didn't want to make a scene, so I waited until after Emma and Sean left to tell him what had happened. David was shocked and angry that Emma could say such hurtful things after everything I'd done for her. That night, I couldn't sleep and kept replaying my conversation with Emma. I thought about all the times she called me mom, said I love you, and came to me for advice. It was hard to reconcile those memories with her tone that night. I wondered if Sean had swayed her, or if she'd always felt this way and just kept it to herself. In the following days, I hoped Emma would call to apologize or say she didn't mean it, but no call came. David reached out to her, but she stuck to her guns, insisting she was just being honest and didn't see why we were so upset. She still loved me and wanted me around, but she wanted to be clear on roles, especially now that she was becoming a mom. Facing this new reality, I had to decide how to respond. I'd always been the one who managed the finances for Emma's needs, from school supplies and clothes to college expenses and emergencies. I'd saved money to help her out with big life events like getting married and having kids. I was looking forward to spoiling my grandchild, taking Emma shopping for baby stuff, throwing a baby shower, and setting up a college fund. After Emma's declaration, I started questioning whether I should keep supporting someone who clearly didn't value our relationship beyond a legal step relationship. If I wasn't her real mom, should I still provide the kind of help real moms do? Should I only be involved at the level she deemed appropriate for a stepmom? I talked to David about my decision, and at first he tried to change my mind. He thought I was reacting out of hurt and might regret cutting off financial help later. He reminded me that Emma was young and might not fully realize what her words meant. So I was chatting with David about Emma and her whole situation. We were hoping that after she had the baby, she might realize she needed us a bit more and maybe change her mind about how things were. But I had to explain to David that this wasn't about getting back at her or anything. It was about respecting the lines Emma had drawn and responding the right way. I told him how I've spent the last 15 years pouring my heart and resources into Emma because I saw her as my daughter. But if she didn't see it that way anymore, I had to adjust my expectations and change how I acted. I said I'd still be nice and friendly to her, treating her like any other young woman married into the extended family, but I couldn't really play the mom role if she didn't want me to. David eventually got where I was coming from, though he still hoped Emma would come around and apologize so we could go back to our old family vibe. I told him I hoped for that too, but I couldn't keep putting my heart and money into someone who had straight up said no thanks to the relationship I thought we had. I mentioned that if Emma ever wanted to chat about building a new kind of relationship, I'd totally be open to it. But for now, I needed to keep myself from getting hurt again. So I called the bank and stopped the automatic payments I was sending to a savings account that was supposed to be for Emma's future stuff. I also canceled buying baby furniture and a bunch of other nursery things. I didn't make a big deal out of it or anything. I just quietly stopped doing the financial support stuff I had been doing. Emma didn't notice until about 2 weeks later when she called asking if I could help with the deposit for a bigger apartment. I told her I couldn't pitch in for that, and when she asked why, I explained that since I wasn't her real mom, I figured I should scale back my financial help to match my stepmom role. Emma seemed really taken aback and upset. She said she didn't expect me to react this way just because she was being upfront about our family dynamics. She tried to say that just because she wanted to differentiate between biological and step relationships didn't mean she loved me any less or wanted me out of her life. I told her I understood and I was just responding logically because if I'm not her real mom, then it doesn't make sense for me to act like one financially. Emma asked if I was punishing her for being honest, and I explained I wasn't trying to punish anyone. I was just adjusting my actions to align with the boundaries she set. I told her if she wanted me to be a part of her life as a stepmom, I'd be involved at a level that made sense for that role. Things got a bit tense, and Emma accused me of being petty and vindictive, which really stung because I tried to explain my decision was based more on logic than emotion. I assured her I wasn't trying to hurt her, and I wanted her to be happy and successful, but I also needed to protect myself from the pain of acting like her mom when she clearly said I wasn't. Emma hung up, and that conversation didn't fix anything right away. Over the next few weeks, she kept reaching out for financial help with baby expenses, and each time I politely said no and reminded her of my role as a stepmom. Emma got more and more frustrated and told David I was being unreasonable, pulling back support when she needed it most. David was stuck in the middle and tried to suggest compromises, but Emma wouldn't admit her comments had been hurtful, and I couldn't keep funding someone who had rejected our parent-child relationship. David eventually told Emma she needed to talk things out with me directly if she wanted to change the situation. Meanwhile, Emma's biological mom had been mostly AWOL during her pregnancy, which was typical. Emma had tried reconnecting with her a few times, but it usually ended badly, with broken promises or her mom showing up drunk. I had always supported Emma's desire to have a relationship with her real mom, even though it meant helping her through the aftermath when it didn't work out. Then, close to Emma's due date, her biological mom reached out, wanting to be involved with the baby. This seemed to reinforce Emma's belief that biological ties were more important than the ones we chose. She was super excited that her child would have a real grandmother. But with my experience, I knew her mom was likely to disappoint and possibly be a bad influence if she got too involved. Still, since I wasn't mom or her advisor anymore, I didn't think it was my place to warn Emma. Emma had a healthy baby boy in early spring. David and I went to the hospital to meet our new grandson. Emma was happy to see us and proudly showed off the baby, but there was still some underlying tension in our relationship. So I swung by to see Emma and Sean after their little one arrived. Emma was going on about how great it was for her son to finally have a real grandma through her biological mom. I congratulated them and cuddled the baby, but didn't hang around long because, honestly, the whole situation felt a bit tense. Over the next few months, Emma's biological mom started popping up more often, trying to be part of the picture. But as I suspected, her involvement was all over the place, sometimes flaking last minute on babysitting or showing up when she wasn't sober. Plus, her so-called parenting advice was outdated and kind of risky. Emma was getting fed up with her mom's unreliable ways, but didn't want to admit things weren't turning out as she'd imagined. Meanwhile, Emma was having a tough time financially juggling all the new parenting expenses, on top of trying to handle things herself. She reached out to me a few times for help with baby-related costs. David, on the other hand, was stuck in this awkward spot. He wanted to be a supportive grandpa, but felt torn between helping Emma and his loyalty to me. He ended up helping Emma financially on his own, but couldn't fill all the gaps since I had been her main support for years. Things really blew up when Emma's biological mom was supposed to babysit one night. Emma and Sean went out for dinner, only to find out later that she left the baby alone to buy cigarettes. A neighbor heard the baby crying, and the police got involved. Emma was mortified and realized her mom wasn't the safe option she hoped for, and was scared it might mess with her custody. Next day, she called me in tears, asking if I'd help her find a reliable childcare solution so she could work without panicking about her baby's safety. She admitted her biological mom wasn't reliable and started to see why I'd been such a big part of her life all these years. I listened and felt for her, but reminded her about the boundaries she set between us, which I was trying to respect. Emma asked if we could talk about rebuilding our relationship, and I said I was open to it. But it needed to start with her acknowledging how hurtful her comments about real mothers had been, along with an honest apology for overlooking the 15 years I devoted to raising and supporting her. She went silent for a while, saying she needed to mull it over. Weeks trickled by without a word from Emma. I figured she chose not to mend things since she hadn't reached out. David kept visiting Emma and the baby, keeping me in the loop, but respected my decision not to jump back into financial support or involvement until Emma was ready to address the issues. One evening, Emma showed up at our door, drained and carrying her baby. She asked to talk alone, and as David gave us so, Me space, she admitted. She'd been wrong to downplay our relationship. Becoming a mom made her realize the real effort and love that goes into parenting, and she finally saw that biology isn't what makes someone a parent. She apologized, hoping we could reconnect. I appreciated her honesty and apology, but explained that rebuilding trust would take time. I reminded her how her dismissal of our bond had hurt deeply, and I needed to see that she truly valued our relationship before investing in it again. Emma asked what she could do to show she's changed, and I told her actions speak louder than words. I needed to see her treat me with the respect she would show a mother. Over time, Emma really stepped up. She included me in her life and the baby's life, asking for advice, inviting me over often, and calling me her son's grandma without any qualifiers. I slowly started helping financially again, with small contributions at first. I was cautious not to leap into the same level of support until I was sure her change was genuine. It took almost a year to rebuild our relationship, but we eventually found a new way to be that worked for both of us. Emma stopped making comments about real versus fake family and consistently treated me with love and respect. I resumed supporting them financially at a level that felt right, and I got involved in my grandson's life as his grandmother.